The first time hearing a new catchword, I often find myself pondering its meaning. When running across the word upcycling, I knew in a flash what it meant: reworking, refashioning old materials. My closet is filled with old fashions. With a touch of ingenuity, these fashions can easily take on a new life. Donna Fenske, member of the Sewing with Nancy team, has a handle on creativity and upcycling. She's my guest during this two-part series. Donna, we're going to start with a traditional old-fashioned denim shirt and give it an uplift.
Nancy, and it's amazing how fast you can refashion a shirt. A basic denim shirt was a candidate for the refashion. I gave the shirt a quick turnaround, switching the front to the back and vice versa for an upcycled pullover.
Upcycled shirts, that's what's coming up next on Sewing with Nancy.
Sewing with Nancy, TV's longest-airing sewing and quilting program with Nancy Zieman, is made possible by Baby Lock, a complete line of sewing, quilting, and embroidery machines and sergers. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Madeira, specializing in embroidery, quilting, and special effect threads, because creativity is never black and white. Koala Studios, fine sewing furniture custom built in America. Clover, makers of sewing, knitting, quilting, and embroidery products for over 25 years. Experience the Clover difference. Amazing Designs and Class A Needles.
If any of you have a denim shirt hanging in the back of your closet, you may want to take this upcycling idea by switching the back to the front and adding a little trim.
What we have here on the denim shirt is I used a fusible trim at the collar, and then I also ran it down the placket, and it's basically positioned between the original top stitching of the denim shirt. But notice that I have a seam here, and when I spin the shirt around, you will see that the lower front became the lower back. And again, I continued trimming with the fusible trim and securing it with a twin needle.
The first thing you have to do is decide where you'd like that line, the seam, slightly below the bust line. And Donna, you found about 3 buttons down, and then to kind of make sure that, let's say here we have a pocket. If we put a seam right here, we'd have to release part of the pocket.
Right, right. And also I like people to audition trying the shirt on, unbuttoning it, the 3 buttons, and see if they can make it into a pullover and put it back on. So that's very helpful.
So after you've decided where that seam is, try it on, and then pin the fabrics together so that you can have a nice flat area. Mark with a chalk line and with a ruler and cut it apart. Instead of cutting flat fabric into pieces, we're cutting pieces and switching them around. You can see we've serged the edges. You could zigzag the edges if you'd like.
Well, what we're going to do now is add the trim to the placket and collar. And basically, we're going to, it has a release paper that has the fusible on the underside of the trim. And Nancy's just going to place a pin there so that we can kind of hold it in position. And we're going to simply fuse it like between the top stitching on this denim shirt and continue fusing until we have all the areas that we would like embellished, already trimmed.
And the fuse, excuse me, I
fused in place.
And the fusing is a pinning technique.
Right, right.
So now you need to stitch it. And here's a close-up of using the double needle. 2 needles, 2 threads, 1 bobbin, stitching down the center of the trim just to quickly attach it. And Donna, you'd like to trim both the front piece and what will become the back piece along the placket line. Even do the collar, the cuffs, whatever you'd like.
Right.
Then once you...
Then the fun part.
Yeah. What was the front becomes the back, and you can mark the
center front or center back and line up to the appropriate marks.
Now here you may want to stitch together the placket so that it's closed, or just pin it together, and we'll just do a quick pinning technique. But just to show you that you're going to be doing this in a circle.
And you'll find too that maybe there's a little more built-in ease in the back the lower back of the shirt, which is now being attached to the front. So you just might have to ease in a little bit, and it really isn't noticeable.
Sure. And it doesn't really take 4 hands to do this.
Right, right,
So
right.
you can do it at 2 hands at home. So then you just sew or serge around the circle, and after you do, it's
We have
exactly what you have there.
kind of a turnaround shirt.
Yeah, yes. And it's a great pullover, nice new style to the denim. Now the seam that we have on this shirt is slightly below the bust line, but you don't have to have it there. You could have it at the waistline. Here's another shirt option, a striped Oxford shirt. And then, Donna, you transformed it to the shirt that you see here, which has the seam at the waistline. Now, you just saw the shirt on the mannequin, and here it is up close.
And again, before you would trim and flip the lower portion of the shirt, you might want to audition and even see where the placement that you would like to actually trim your shirt.
Kind of mark where you have your waistline and maybe allow for some seam allowances. Now, I'm a little bit on the tall side, and I tried to alter a shirt, and the shirt was too short. So you could also add a different color of fabric or
Right.
whatever you'd like to coordinate this. So it's switching. Let's show the back, because, I mean, this is kind of a clever way of making a new look to this shirt. And then you could button or unbutton this. That's very nice. And of course, when you sew, you have threads, so we'll just remove that thread.
And the shirt kind of has kind of a fun, maybe even nautical look to it. It's just something that you could wear most anywheres.
So the main idea we'd like you to remember when you're working with this type of upcycling technique is to button the closure to where you think it's going to have a seam. Make sure you can make sure that it will try it on, and then determine if you'd like a seam at the waistline or
At the umpire.
and then cut the fabric apart, switch around and sew it together, and it's a very quick way to upcycle. Donna just couldn't part with her favorite colored suede shirt. The color is terrific, but the style, well, it was slightly outdated. She now can wear it again with confidence since she gave it an upgrade with an easy upcycling technique. We're calling this shirt Wear It Again Upcycling. And Donna, you must like this color.
I do, because I had 2 in the closet, very comparable. So I could photograph one for cutaways. And this one here, we've added trim to the neckline. And then also we have trim that becomes part of the tie. So we've taken a portion of the shirt to create the tie. We also added trim to the turn-up cuff. So now I have, from this one piece of ribbon, a lot of inspiration for different tops I could wear.
That's right.
And then the back also has additional tucks to give it a little more shape and style to the shirt.
So when you are upcycling, you have something ready-made, you're going to have to take from one area and add to the other because there isn't any yardage to work with. And the first thing we often do is to do some auditioning, and we have, after auditioning where the waistline should be, or just plain marking where the waistline should be, Donna, you've marked it there.
We just placed some pins for our waistline.
And then to get the ties, we'll show you what happened.
What I did was I trimmed off about 1.5 inches, 2 inches off of the back of my shirt. I would repeat it for the front as well.
Yes.
But this area is kind of where the ties came from. And also if you need extra length, you always have the front to work with too.
So trim the same amount off the front as you have the back, and then later you can hem it, serge the edges, zigzag the edges, and turn up and do some top stitching. And then you've designed just little tucks that will come in the booklet that accompanies today's program.
Right, and we kind of center it in our jacket front or shirt front area. And then we're simply going to
And here's the
line,
waist.
line it up, kind of the middle marking with our pin markings. And then we're simply going to make our little markings through our openings of our tucks. And we'll make all of our markings. And then we'll start constructing our ties. And our ties will eventually be tucked into the tucks. But prior to that, auditioning ribbon is a good start too.
And this ribbon is 1.5 inches wide. It's perfect grosgrain ribbon, some stability. If you wanted wider ties, you could make wider ribbon.
Actually, I found that, especially in the cuff area, your cuffs might be a little wider, and you might need to just add another coordinating ribbon to make it wider.
Obviously, it would coordinate with the ribbon you chose for the ties, but this
Yes.
shows the example.
Right.
And then the ties are cut 1 inch wider than the width of the ribbon or the trim, and then either a total of 20 inches or 2 10-inch ties, depending how much fabric you have to work with.
And what I have here is the lower back section of my shirt, and I'm actually pinning my trim on the board, my ribbon, and I'm actually going to use my ribbon kind of as the template, and it's going to help me press my shape.
Because it has that nice firm edge.
Right, and then repeat on the other side. Of course, I would have removed any hem seam allowances or hem. And then I'm simply going to remove the center of my ribbon and stack it on top. At both ends, I like to place a little miter. So I'll press in a miter. So I'm bringing the raw edges right to a point. And also one more fold, and that'll give me a really nice clean finished edge. On my next sample here, I can start stacking my finished ends. And what I would do is then top stitch. Oh,
Right here, sorry, Donna.
that's fine. So simply stack them, and then you would start top stitching around 3 sides.
Then the end of the ribbon, now this is contrasting, would go inside the tuck. You'd pin it inside the tuck, and then from the wrong side stitch the tuck. And this is just shows a sample in process. So that gives us the shape of the tuck, and you stitch 2 tucks on each side, 2 tucks on each side of the back. Now if you'd like to add ribbon to the neckline as a shape and get it exactly shaped,
What we're going to do is kind of measure the band, and we're actually going to lay the ribbon the full length of our piece here. Oops, excuse me. I'm going to give you that end, Nancy. Okay. What we're doing is we're going to pin the ribbon to the base of the collar stand, and we have the ribbon extending beyond the curve. So this enables us then to trace the shape of the collar or the collar stand onto the ribbon. Here we've already attached a piece.
turn it right side out. The edges are finished. You place on the fabric, you do a little pinning, and then just top stitch all the way around. And that's what we have done. Top stitched. You can either shorten it or widen it if needed. And these are some trims that you can add for the Wear It Again shirt. Reclaim a classic shirt from the back of your closet and upcycle it with ruffles. From tailored to frilly, refashioning can accommodate all tastes and styles. Grab your seam ripper and let the restyling begin. You saw what this blouse looked like before Donna took a seam ripper to it and did some cutting and refashioning, adding some batik fabric as a ruffle along the collar band and along the front adding ruffles. This blouse obviously had a collar to it, and that collar became, in the back, which you didn't see, is a back tab or a nice little back interest around the waistline. The edges of the collar were covered with the batik fabric, and I think this is a nice detail. The first thing that you have to do is, with the seam ripper, remove the collar. It comes off very easily, just with the seam ripper, do some
Right,
trimming.
and that's the only time I used the seam ripper on this project was to remove that collar.
And then you're going to make some ruffles. And Donna, you like to use the ruffler foot.
I found that it was very, very handy, and I had it on the setting of 6, and Nancy will show you the different settings of the ruffler foot.
Now don't let this foot scare you, because Honestly, I call it a dinosaur. It looks kind of ancient, and I have an antique sewing machine and it has a ruffler foot in it, but I use this so often. Here are the components. At the very top, the numbering system, 1, 6, 12, and then a star, indicate how many stitches at which a ruffle will be taken. Every stitch would get a ruffle, every 6th stitch, and that's what we're going to do today, or every 12th stitch, which really is just a little bit of a tuck, and then the star without any ruffle stitching. Donna's going to show you in a few minutes that there is a guide or a little foot that grasps the fabric, and let me see if I can make it work from this angle.
It kind of looks like a little fork, and
right here.
Yeah, and it's just going to grab your fabric and push it through the ruffler.
Then the important part when attaching this to your machine is that there's the traditional area where it fits around the leg of your foot that goes on the machine, but then the C-clamp goes around the needle bar. Usually we don't have anything with the needle bar except the needle. So because this will accommodate the ruffle mechanism, you must make certain that when you're placing this on your machine that you tighten the needle bar. Just make sure that's tightened. I've had mine come out, so just give it allow it to be tightened, and then this C-clamp will go around the needle bar, and you'll see that in Donna's machine. Now, Donna, you cut ruffles 2.5 inches wide.
I cut them 2.5 inches wide, and what I did, cut them crosswise grain, and then I folded them in half so that they became like 1.25 inches, and then I also ran a basting stitch. Also, because of the setting of the number 6, I figured out that it was about 1.5 the length of my area that I wanted to ruffle.
So whatever length you would like to ruffle, multiply by 1.5.
Correct, correct. And now I have mine already, my ruffle already loaded into the ruffler, and it's going to simply ruffle every 6th stitch, and the little fork foot is pushing the fabric through very nicely, and when you're completed, you will have the raw edges of the ruffle for this technique, and on my little board that I have here, I'll show you how to maybe work with the different ruffled edges. And originally, I would put my ruffle down and top stitch it in place for this technique, which is finished right here. It's pressed very nicely, and I would have attached it to my garment. This one is showing that I have a trim that's covering my raw edges, and again I would stitch through that possibly with a double needle. This one I'm wrapping like 1.25 inches fabric around the raw edges to encompass the raw edges, and eventually then I would attach that to my garment as well.
Well, you open the seam at the neckline, removing the collar, and inside we've used that double-sided basting tape that has been so handy throughout this series.
It's just kind of nice to attach part of the ruffle. It will hold the ruffle in place so that after you have it attached, then maybe the other half you would pin the 2 layers together, and it's very, very helpful, and it kind of gives you like that third hand, just having that double-sided tape in there.
I appreciate a third hand right about now. So you would pin it with the tape to one side, and then the other side would just be turned under, following the original stitching line, and you can enclose the edge and stitch it. Now, this particular shirt did not have a placket, so
I had to mark or measure like 1.25 inches from the fold of the fabric and just stitch a line for placement.
And you probably wouldn't do it necessarily in green, but it gave us a great place to position the trim along this area. Donna folded under the edges as you saw and top stitched. And then the collar was cut in half.
Cut in half and just positioned.
With a little trim and placed as the back. So a ruffle do-over. The last of our 6 renovations for upcycled shirts. It's a terrific way to renovate something in your closet and takes very little time. My next Nancy's Corner guest has been with us before, sharing her vision to give sewing machines to those who have lost theirs in a natural disaster or who do not have the means to acquire one. Now her big heart has expanded to help Gulf Coast residents affected by the 2010 oil spill. I'd like you to welcome back Margaret Jankowski. Margaret is here from the Sewing Machine Project and the newest venture, the Sea Hope Partners. Welcome back, Margaret.
Thank you so much for having me back.
You've been on Sewing with Nancy. This is a third time. You're one of our
Yeah.
first Nancy's Corner guests, and you told about the Sewing Machine Project, where you gather unused but workable machines and donate them around the world.
Yes, yes. We started it six years ago now, in 2005, and we have been working over the years to collect donated sewing machines from people across the country. And we've donated them locally, nationally, and internationally as well. To date, we've given out almost 1,000 sewing machines.
That gives me goosebumps. That's a great thing. But then, as I mentioned, you have a new initiative.
That's true. Last year, when the oil spill happened in 2010, we were trying to figure out how to respond. And our first thought was that sewing machines just didn't seem like quite the right answer. And so we thought about it and came up with the idea for making these messenger bags that you see here. And the idea was to make a bag that was very functional for men and women, and we wanted to make it out of recycled materials. And not only just recycled materials, but recycled sails and nautical equipment to remind people of the sea.
Of course. One-of-a-kind bags, and this makes a little noise, but
Yeah.
here we go. When we open the hook and loop tape, but how roomy it is, and great for a lot of things. But the main thing is that you're recycling, plus you're giving away the proceeds to various areas.
That's right. That's right. The money that we're raising is going to help people who were displaced by the oil spill.
Very clever. These are really fun bags, and you've gone a little bit further from that.
Well, we have. Not only are our initial bag designs very unique, just because they're cut from different parts of the sail.
Sure.
But we did want to go one step further, and so we decided to come up with a really, truly one-of-a-kind type of bag. And so these bags we call our Artist Series, and we cut out the bag piece, and then we send them to artists around the country, and they
Clever.
paint them, put fabric on them, do
we'll
whatever
show a
their art
fabric
medium
one.
is.
So then the proceeds go to help the individuals, and so you sell them, but then you have a team of people who are cutting and constructing.
That's true. Yes, we have a team of volunteers who do the cutting, and then the constructing is actually done here in Madison on this style of bag. But our plan is to eventually be able to construct bags down in the affected areas and create some jobs down there as well.
Well, they're very charming, and look at this one on the back. This is a lot of fun. You can see this is done by a quilt artist, and so then we have an acrylic artist here, or oil. Very interesting. So far you've done some donations down there.
We have indeed. We are working with a group who helps people who lost their jobs and need some job placement help, but also some counseling.
Sure.
We're kind of trying to hit it from every aspect and just give them the money to do that.
So not only has your nonprofit organization collect sewing machines, but then you find recycled materials, sales, not flags,
yep.
excuse me,
Yep.
sales in this instance, and then you contract with artists to do some renovation and embellishment. Yeah, they need stuff in them, don't they?
They do.
They like to tip over. And what a great thing of combining all the skills that we have.
It's really true. I'm very, very proud of it. And we've really created a great product. People use them for commuting, for their laptops,
Sure.
all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
So.
Well, thank you, Margaret, for being our guest once again. And maybe you can come back and tell us how this has progressed in a year or so.
I would love to.
Great. And you can find out more about the Sea Hope Project, the Sewing Machine Project, by going to www.nancyzieman.com, and you'll find links to the Nancy's Corner guests, such as Margaret, and then be able to watch, in addition, the current Sewing with Nancy programs right online. You can also read about my blog, and you'll be directed to all things Sewing with Nancy. Well, this wraps up our two-part series on upcycled shirts with guest Donna Fenske. I hope you'll be encouraged to upcycle some of your clothes, make these fun little treatments, and also go to our website and be a partner with Seho Partners or the Sewing Machine Project. So thank you for joining us. Bye for now.
Nancy and Donna have written a fully illustrated book entitled Upcycled Shirts that includes all the information from this two-part series. It's $14.99 plus shipping and handling. To order the book, call 800-336-8373 or visit our website at sewingwithnancy.com/2508. Order item number BK2508, Upcycled Shirts. Credit card orders only. To pay by check or money order, call the number on the screen for details. Visit Nancy's website at nancyzieman.com to see additional episodes, Nancy's blog, and more. Sewing with Nancy, TV's longest-airing sewing and quilting program with Nancy Zieman, has been brought to you by Baby Lock, Madeira Threads, Koala Studios, Clover, Amazing Designs, and Class A Needles. Closed captioning funding provided by Rowenta. Sewing with Nancy is a co-production of Nancy Zieman Productions and Wisconsin Public Television.